Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman in our downtown studios. And we are going to run down to, I believe, at least the Southfield office of Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith. And if not, at least a room that is close to that, because we never know these days where people are broadcasting from, right? So we want to welcome Cliff Hammond. Cliff, it's welcome to the Michigan Business Beat, and thanks for being here. We got a million questions for you, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great to be here.
So Cliff is here. He's a member of Foster Swift's employer services practice, which brings into play exactly where we are these days. So let me get right to it. Employers and employees. Are employees required to report to work now that the feasibility requirement for in-person work has been removed by MIOSHA?
Right. That all depends on who you work for, because the state hasn't mandated everybody come back to work. All they've said is, guess what? Now employers, you have the right to ask your employees to come back to work, even if it's feasible for them to work remotely. So it depends. Does your employer want you back? Do they want you back a couple of days a week? Do they want you remote all the time? It all depends. So everybody's going to have a little different situation than they had just a week ago. And by the way, in a couple hours, maybe we'll look up and find it's changed, because these things change with the wind. But right now, that's where we're at.
Well, in an attempt to not make you smile too much, some of these things I would presume are going to be hashed out in the court of law.
Well, there's a good chance some of this stuff won't have to go to the court of law. We're hoping now that we've moved to this state that we're getting to a point now we understand. We were remote for a lot of places if you couldn't do your job at home. Obviously, if you work in a factory and you make fenders, you can't sit at the kitchen table and bang those out. You could, but it's not feasible. But if you could simply jump online, make a few phone calls, why not sit at home? Now we're saying, hey, look, let's just let everybody come back to work and have some employers have some reasonable adult decisions on what they want to do with their employees. So hopefully that'll back off some of these litigation issues, and we can just get back to work that we think is appropriate for your workplace, and your employer makes that call, not the state.
Cliff, how should employers be dealing with, I guess, people who have medical issues coming back to work in the office?
Yeah, the biggest issue coming back now is if you take a look at the new rules that just came out, they say if you've been vaccinated, come on down and don't wear a mask. But there are going to be people that are going to fall into what I call gray area. And I think a lot of people are going to be asking their question, what do we do with somebody who says, I have a vaccination, but here's the deal. My doctor says I can't come to work in that direct in-person place because I've got this medical condition. I can't wear it. So the employer has to go through a process where they go back and forth with them, with their doctor, and try to find out a reasonable accommodation. But the rules don't allow you to come to work in person without a mask. So you're going to have to find a way to, maybe they can wear a mask for a little bit. Maybe they can wear some sort of other protective gear. Maybe you can move their office or wherever they're working so they can get in and out of the door. It's going to be complicated. And that's sort of the gray area you have to look at. And some employees might just say, I'm not getting a vaccine, so I have to wear a mask to come into work. And my doctor gave me this note, and you have to deal with it. Now I'm going to work remotely. So it's going to be difficult how you deal with those type of employees.
I hate to be this blunt, but this is a question we're going to have to deal with. Can an employer fire an employee who won't come back to work upon request?
They may well be able to, depending on the circumstance. Every circumstance is a little bit different, just like, can you just fire employees? Well, in Michigan, you're an at-will employee, but you can't do it discriminatorily, right? Same thing here. You can't discriminate against an employee because they've said, well, you're unlawful. So if you're doing something that's against the rules, the MIOSHA rules, and then you raise a concern about it and you fire the person, obviously they can sue you. So you can do anything you want, but there are consequences. You have to think it through. And I would say if it's because of a return to work or because of a mask issue, you need to think it through. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction, because that's how you get sued.
Cliff, are there any specific COVID rules that are still in force right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of COVID rules. Obviously, you've got to wear a mask in the workplace unless you are vaccinated, is number one. And then number two, you still have to have these controls when you walk into your office. You have to have a plan. You have to have somebody in charge of your plan to be able to screen people, make sure that you're in compliance with the safety precautions that MIOSHA requires. Because MIOSHA can still come in and say, things aren't done. You still have requirements. So all those requirements we had before for workplaces are relatively intact, other than this limitation on coming back to work and some of these rules they allow you to come in on. But you still have to have a plan. You have to follow it.
Should we expect changes in the workplace? I think I know the answer to this already, or from the state, and if so, what types of changes?
Well, I think you're going to look at some changes coming down the pike in, through the summer. I hope that the changes are going to be more relaxation, so that maybe everybody can have the mask off, and maybe more relaxations on what you have to do as far as screening, taking temperatures, things like that.
Well, Cliff, thanks so much for giving us your time. We appreciate your expertise. And this is, like you've said earlier, a moving target. So I guess we're going to roust you again as we get updates.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Cliff. Cliff Hammond, shareholder, Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith, with offices in Southfield, Lansing, and 4 others throughout the state of Michigan. We're going to be right back. You are watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman.